And joining me now is General Frank McKenzie, former commander of U.S. Central Command. Thank you so much for being here, General. I really appreciate your willingness to take the time to give us some perspective on these strikes we're seeing.
Always happy to be with you.
Let me first ask, most of the targets, as we know so far, that Israel was targeting were people or equipment that had to do with Iran's nuclear operation. A big concern in the region has been retaliation. We saw drone strikes in Israel overnight. We know that Iran has a pretty extensive missile system. So let me ask you if you could just put some context around that for us right now. What are you seeing as the biggest threat in terms of more or additional potential Iranian retaliation?
Sure. So, first of all, the Israeli attack was breathtaking in audacity, very effective, dealt a blow to the nuclear program, didn't destroy the nuclear program. There's more work to be done there that maybe they'll get back to in the days ahead. But I think to go to your question about remaining Iranian capabilities, Iran still has a significant ballistic missile force, of which many hundreds are probably capable of reaching Tel Aviv. The question of whether or not to use that force against Israel is one the Iranians are probably mulling over right now. Maybe they've even already made a decision. But we know they've attacked Israel twice last year with ballistic missiles. Both times, I would say those attacks were generally ineffective. It is difficult to see how an Iranian attack tonight or tomorrow would end any differently. So they've got to know that. They have a throughput problem attacking Israel in that they only have so many launchers for those ballistic missiles. So while they might have thousands of missiles in inventory, they can only launch 200 or 300 at a time against Israel. That volley is not going to overcome Israeli defenses. So that's just a fact. That's just the hard operational fact that the Iranians are doubtless aware of. So they're going to have to decide what they want to do. They can launch, so they could attack Israel. Apparently, they did attack Israel with drones immediately after the attack. To the best of my knowledge, that attack has been ineffective. I'm unaware of any damage in Israel. There may be some late breaking news, but I'm unaware of any damage in Israel. So Iran has a real problem because they lost Lebanese Hezbollah, which was their strategic hedge against Israel. Well, those guys are off the table and they're not coming back in the near future. So Iran is in a real pickle right now. If they choose to respond solely against Israel, that attack will probably be no more effective than the two attacks that preceded it. Now, what they could do, of course, is turn on us. They could launch attacks with their missiles against our forces in Iraq and Syria, our bases in the region, and our friends in the region as well. Those are much shorter ranges. They don't have the tractor erector launcher problem with many of those missiles, so they can gain a much higher volume of fires against those targets. And that would be very concerning to us if they chose to do it. But here's the problem. If they did that, they're going to kill Americans. That's probably going to bring the United States into this war. And if the United States comes into this war as a result of an Iranian attack on American troops, I don't know that regime change would be off the table. They've got to be very much aware of this. We should remember that the overall priority for Iranian statecraft remains regime preservation. So as they look at their way forward, they have to decide, do they want to narrowly scope against Israel? Do they want to widen the war with the fact that they are, in fact, widening the war and maybe accepting as the other side's objectives something that would foresee the end of the Iranian regime as we know it? It's a tough problem that the Iranians have. It's a very difficult problem. They're as weak as they have ever been in my memory. Their air defenses are ineffective. Their long-range strikes have proven to be not effective against Israel. They could be effective against other targets, as we've discussed, but nonetheless, it's a particularly difficult time for Iranian decision makers.
I would think too, with the U.S., your extensive background in U.S. military operations, and of course, being commander of U.S. Central Command, there had to have been contingency plans on the table for if Iran were to ever really target U.S. troops. I mean, this is something that wouldn't be new to anyone in the U.S. military at this point, right?
No, we have plans. We have plans for virtually any contingency in the Middle East, including this particular contingency. And we would be prepared to execute those plans if the President of the United States directed us to do so.
Yeah. Let me ask you, in terms of military strength in the region. One of the things that you did in your tenure at CENTCOM, you oversaw a couple of really significant things: a special forces operation that killed Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in Syria, the drone attack, of course, that killed Quds Force General Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad. In terms of understanding the strength of the Quds Force right now and how significant they are in any sort of Iranian response, how are you thinking about that?
So, well, it's headless right now, I believe. So they've been decapitated. They will replace commanders. They have people they can bring up. Uh, so the Quds Force will remain a potent and capable force that's not going to go away. Uh, but again, it serves the ultimate ends of Iranian policy. So the question to ask is, really, where's Iranian policy going to go now? Our president this morning suggested they come to Oman. I would argue that's not a bad outcome right there. And President Trump's probably onto something. Whether the Iranians will choose to do that or not is another matter. But they have very few ways forward here that don't risk going to a level of escalation that ultimately they're not going to be able to keep up with.
I've spoken with others today who you've worked with in the past, including folks like Norm Brule, who has enormous respect for you and what you've done, about the ripple effects throughout the region where we could be headed one of two ways. What are you thinking about in terms of the regional impact of what we're seeing now? And if it stops, fine, if it stays contained, but if Iran decides for whatever reason to take it further, what are you most worried about?
Well, first of all, regional states would like for this to stop. There's no good outcome for them. They would like to find a way to stop this exchange of fires. And if Iran were to launch an attack against Israel that was parried, that would provide an opportunity perhaps to go back to some form of status quo. Uh, Assuming the Israelis have accomplished their objectives, and I think their objectives are now pretty clear. They're going to do their very best to erase the Iranian nuclear program. That is a very difficult objective for the Israelis to achieve. They can achieve a lot of things in Iran. That particular objective is going to be very difficult for them to actually accomplish. But regional states fear a widening of the war. They fear Iran striking at them because Iran can't get to Israel. And that would be, I think, a very short-sighted action on Iran's behalf. I would like to think that when it's all said and done, Iran's national leadership will behave rationally here. And rationally is recognizing you have been defeated. You need to draw back. You need to gather your strength. You need to live to fight another day. Because if you were to escalate blindly, I think the outlook for Iran is not good at all.
And the efforts, for those who don't follow the story regularly, the efforts to really rid Iran of their nuclear program are very difficult, in part because of how they have protected their centrifuges and things where they're using these places to enrich uranium, right? Can you tell us just a little bit about why it's so difficult?
Sure. So some of their centrifuges are on the surface. Some are in bunkers immediately underneath the surface that can be attacked. Some of them are in extremely deep bunkers, thousands of feet underground, that are very hard to get to. The United States, have the ability to get into that space through special weapons. We're the only people that do. But I'll tell you, after what happened last night, Suzanne, I wouldn't actually write off anything in terms of Israeli capabilities. That was a surprising night last night. They didn't strike the deep sites. That was a deliberate act. When the Israelis don't do something, there's typically a very good reason for why they chose not to do it. So I'm going to withhold judgment about the security of those deep targets in the face of this Israeli attack.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. They definitely have surprised the world with a couple of operations this year, this not being the very first one. What indicators are you going to be looking for, General, in terms of understanding where this conflict may be headed?
Sure. So we won't know this, but people in our government and at Central Command will know it. What are the Iranians doing with their ballistic missile force? Are they bringing it to full alert? What does that mean? We will know this. They can't hide that. So that will be a strong signal for us about what the Iranians plan to do. After the Qasem Soleimani strike, they brought a fraction of their missile force to full alert. They did not bring the entire force to full alert. That action, which we won't know because it's going to be sensitive information, is going to be very important to understanding the way what the Iranians plan to do. We will know this at a very high level, and that will guide us as to what their thinking is. They can't bring their missiles up in 30 minutes notice like we can with many of our capabilities. They just can't do it. It takes them a little time to get this force ready. So we will have some warning of that, depending on how alert they were before the attack occurred last night. I don't know the answer to that question, but that's something our people will be looking at very closely.
Yeah. General Frank McKenzie, former commander of U.S. Central Command, and we're proud to say a Cipher Brief expert. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to help us put a little bit of context around this. I'm sure we'll be checking in with you again over the coming days. Thank you.
Always great to be with you, Suzanne. Thanks so much.